What is up, everybody? Jester here, and today I'm standing in front of the very first structure I ever built in No Man's Sky for YouTube. A small emerald farm. To this day, it still works beautifully. The planet has changed a little bit, but it still gives me all the emerald I ever need, and it's very efficiently done. We can pop in, grab, and pop out. But we're not here about the build today. We are here about the resource it collects, because today we're going to be talking about units. And we're not going to cover all the different ways that you can make units in this video. I'm strictly going to be talking about farming. And I think it's going to be very useful for a lot of the new players that we got in from Worlds Part 1 and from Aquarius now. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to make a ton of units today. There's a lot to cover. Let's get into it. To get started today, we're going to be talking about probably the easiest way to farm units, and that's going to be basic metals. We're talking copper, cobalt, silver, gold. These are all very renewable. You just grab a stack, you sell it, you make money. And it doesn't really matter how you get them. It can be a very simple base like I've showed you how to do, or it could be something elaborate where you tie other things in. All you need is that resource and you can go sell it for units. Selling basic metals is not going to make you rich quick, but it will get you units over time. Copper comes in at just over 400k a stack. Chromatic metal is more than double that, so definitely take the time to refine it if you have the copper farm before you sell. Cobalt used to be the way to go because you could actually have enough cobalt in your inventory to crash a market, and then you could actually buy it back at a discount, go to a new system, do the same thing. It's way more difficult to do that now because of the way the markets work, as well as diminishing returns, and we'll touch on that here in just a minute. Silver is where you start to get in some real money at just over 1.8 million, and then gold is pretty good at over 3.5 billion. Now, another thing to point out is if you combine silver and gold in a refiner, it makes platinum. That sells for over 5 million units per stack. But if you do the math here, gold's worth 3.5, and this is worth 1.8. It's actually 5.3. So you're losing money by refining it. Certainly not worth the time. Platinum's more of a nanite thing, and it's not a very good one. So just sell the gold and silver separately. There are some other minerals that you can mine for units, but you're going to need some specialist equipment in your ship to do that. So you'll need to go to the anomaly and at the Starship vendor unlock the cadmium drive, the emerald drive, and the indium drive. This will give you access to the red planets, the green planets, and the blue planets respectively. While I still maintain it's a good idea to build yourself a small cadmium, emerald, and indium farm, I would keep it very small because it's just not worth it anymore. You always need these things for like a repair or some crafting recipe, and it's just better to have in a place where you can grab it, but it's not worth anything. 829,000 units a stack for cadmium, 1.1 million units for emerald, and 1.3 million for indium. Now, in each of these red, green, and blue systems, you can find an extreme planet, and this will net you the activated variant of these different resources. And you can find activated copper as well. I'm just not showing it here. But the most expensive one is activated indium, 1.649 million units. That's going to bring me to the next part. But if you're looking for metals and you want to make units, silver and gold, stick with it. And now we got to talk about diminishing returns. For whatever boneheaded reason, 3 or 4 years ago, Hello Games decided to introduce diminishing returns to No Man's Sky. And what this basically means is, think about your hotspot as kind of a finite circle. And you can only put so many miners in this particular circle. And once you add more than the right amount, you start actually getting less. That's diminishing returns. And this irritated me to the point, and I know so many others that probably quit. I gave up for a couple of years because it devalued my time incredibly. People spent hundreds of hours building elaborate activated indium farms that could money cap in one grab. And it was awesome to see. And then one day Hello Games just decided, nah, you can't have that anymore. And if that wasn't enough, they actually nerfed the amount of money it was worth into the ground. So why did you take away that and then take away the other? But that's not really the point of this video. The point is, if you want to make money with metals, it's not easy, it's not going to be fast, but gold and silver are the way to go. For anyone that didn't catch the first Farming 101 video, I'll put a card in the top right corner because we get very specific about the number of salvage data you're going to need, as well as the base parts to build all of these different bases we're about to talk about. The one thing we didn't discuss was the valuable product recipes. And for 7,750 nanites, you can unlock this entire page, and this is going to be the key to making huge amounts of units with farming and plants. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, it is imperative that first off you start a frostwort farm. This is going to give you all the frost crystal to make all the glass you're going to need for all of your biomes. Remember, it doesn't have to be a massive farm to start with, but you need a source. And also note that these only take an hour to grow. So a small farm goes a really long way, but you need tons of glass for these biomes. A lot of people would tell you to go ahead and set up in your freighter, and while it's not a horrible idea, it's not nearly as good as it used to be. You used to be able to hollow out a big area, put in planters, and you could get plenty of each resource. Now we're reduced to these rooms where you can plant 4 total plants. So if it was me, I would just stick with the biomes. With all of the valuable recipes unlocked, just know that you don't actually have to have any plants to start making money. If you were to find a planet that had ammonia and cobalt, and then you found a location that you could actually reach each of those, you could set up a simple base for Herox. It's worth 25k per. But I'm telling you, the plants is where it's at. This is a little base that I set up in the Kingdom system. And again, a card is in the top right corner. If you haven't been to the Kingdom system, come check it out. But I call this one the Living Glass Aquarium because it does one thing. It makes living glass, 25 every 4 hours. As I'm walking around harvesting all these plants, I'll go ahead and put the graphic up here for everything you're going to need to make living glass. And don't worry, this is a simple recipe that's actually worth something. You're going to need glass times 5, and each glass is 40 frost crystal for a grand total of 5,000 to get to 25. The lubricant portion of the recipe is 50 Fecium for 1,250 and 400 Gamma Root. That's going to be 10,000. So the Gamma Root's going to be a little bit more. Now I use 7 Frostwort biomes, 13 Gamma Root biomes, and 4 Fecium biomes to get me there. I usually have a little bit left over, but I do remember back in the day, harvest rates were a little bit different. So now that you know the raw numbers, just harvest a room after it's actually grown and see how much you get based on the gear and stuff you have. If your harvest rates aren't the same as mine, just do the according math. Just make enough biomes to get to the number you need to make however many you're trying to get to. After you've crafted your 125 glass and your 25 lubricant, just select another empty slot, scroll down to the living glass recipe, and craft 25 of these. Now look, this is around 14 million units, sometimes 15. It just depends on what the market is saying for them. And this will turn over 8 times a day, but let's be honest, it's probably 7 because there's collection time and crafting time, and nobody's that diligent to hit it right on the nose. So I would say this, it's 7 times a day. If you really wanted to try hard with it, it's around 70 million units a day. And all you gotta do is craft a little bit of stuff. It's not a bad way. Another option when it comes to plants only is liquid explosive, and this one is extremely tempting, but I'm actually gonna show you why this one doesn't outdo the living glass farm, even though it's worth more per unit. On the surface, the liquid explosive recipe is better than the living glass recipe because it's 800,000 and 500 units per, and at 25, that's just a shade over 20 million units every time you make 25 of those. And the recipe is actually easier to craft because you only need to make 25 each of acid and unstable gel. But the problem comes in because you need different plants to make this one, and I think a lot of newer players specifically are going to overlook a really big factor when it comes to this. The thing to watch out for when it comes to growing plants and biomes is actually the grow time. So for you new players, really pay attention to this because it's going to affect the layout of your base and how many biomes of what you need. It's just a good thing to pay attention to. Fungal mold takes 4 hours to grow, while the Mordite root portion of the liquid explosive recipe is 8, and the cactus flesh is a whopping 16. So even though this makes more money, it's going to take longer if you don't do something. So the Mordite can actually be mitigated a little bit because you can pull this, if you find the right kind of planet with the right deposit, out of the ground. So you're only limited to how quickly you can make this stuff by how much you can get in a depot and how quickly. The cactus flesh, however, is a little bit different. You actually have to double the number that you would need to get this farm on an 8-hour cycle. And then you got to pay attention to the Mordite, make sure you got enough of that as well. So it's a little more difficult. And at 8 hours, this doesn't outdo a living glass farm. This is about 10 or 15 million units less. But if you were to quadruple the number of cactus flesh that you had, you would actually really outdo at over 120 million units a day, whereas the living glass would be like 70. So I don't know, it's up to you how much you want to put into this. I'm going to stick with living glass, but there's definitely a place for liquid explosive. So far, I've showed you folks some moderate ways of making units with farming, but we're going to be getting into the big ones now because I've showed you in the past how to make stasis devices. We're not doing that today. Today, we're going to be doing the other really big recipe, and that's the fusion igniters. What if I told you if you bring 1,000 cobalt with you to the Kingdom system, I can make you 156 million units in just a matter of a few minutes? Well, I can. This is the Kingdom Refining Hub, which has been recently renovated to become my Fusion Igniter Hub. This only makes 10 every 16 hours, but at 156 million units, does it really need to be bigger? Before I get into all the big details about how to make these igniters, there's a couple of things you need to prep up. It's better to do this in advance. First of all, refine some rusted metal down into ferrite dust, and then refine that ferrite dust down into pure ferrite. It's also a really good idea to get some oxygen going in a refiner for some carbon, and when that's all finished up, get the carbon back in a refiner for condensed carbon. We're going to get into numbers here in just a second. While you're at it, go ahead and take that 1,000 cobalt I told you needed, get it refining down into 500 ionized cobalt. Again, ahead of time, it's not a bad idea. Sadly, this is just something we don't have in the system as cobalt, so you're going to have to bring your own to do this. But get the refining done early, and this is a snap. Getting into the actual ingredient list, and this is clearly marked in the Kingdom system in 5 separate bases, so if you're going to use mine, there's more than enough to go around here. You're going to need 3,000 condensed carbon, 2,000 pure ferrite, 500 each of ammonia, pyrite, and uranium, as well as the 500 ionized cobalt that you'll have to bring with you. Sorry, I just don't have it in system. For gases, you need 5,000 radon, 5,000 nitrogen, and 5,000 sulfurine. As far as plants go, those are at the refining hub. Fungal mold at 6,000, cactus flesh at 3,000, selenium at 2,000, star bulb at 2,000, frost crystal 1,000, and mortite at 250. And now we got everything we need, but we're going to craft in a real particular order. Remember before you get started that you have to go to the anomaly and at least get these recipes we're going to be talking about unlocked before you can craft them. But what I like to do is craft up 20 thermic condensate, 20 nitrogen salt, and 20 enriched carbon, because these are actually things that we're going to use to make other things for either the quantum processor or the portable reactor going forward. So it's just easier to get these out of the way. We're going to start with the quantum processor. First, craft 10 heat capacitors, and then 10 polyfibers, followed by 10 circuit boards, 10 semiconductors, 10 superconductors, and then you can craft your 10 quantum processors. We're a third of the way there. For the portable reactor, craft 10 acid, 10 unstable gel, and then craft 10 liquid explosive. See, I told you it had a place. 10 organic catalyst is next, followed by 10 fusion accelerants, and then finally craft your 10 portable reactors. For the geodesite, now I hope I'm enunciating that correctly, first craft 10 dirty bronze, then 10 Herox, followed by 10 lemium, and then 10 geodesite. From there, it's just 10 fusion igniters and 156 million units. For anybody that would like to come and visit the Kingdom system, here are the planetary coordinates. Again, all 5 of these bases are here. It has everything you need except for the cobalt. And it's just a neat little system that we've got a lot of different builds. There's a ton of other stuff here, including Plink Ball, which is a game within the game. Just come on by. Feel free to build in the system as well. And also take whatever you want. It's all here meant for community. So hopefully you guys pop by and give this a try. Before anybody gets their undies in a big twist, I know that there's other ways to make units, and it's probably even faster than what we're talking about here. But this was just the progression that I did. And if you guys want to experience all the game has to offer, farming is such a wonderful way to go about doing it. Because you can make units just through the basic metals, and then through the mid-level recipes, and then these big ones are pretty good money. And you'll be at a money cap before you know it. Hopefully this kind of information helps you guys out. And trust me, in the next one, we're going to help you out even more, because these units we're going to turn into nanites. I'm going to be doing my top 5 methods of making nanites in No Man's Sky. So if you want to see that, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications, because that's coming real soon here to a video near you. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.